The authentic learning activities that my students have taken part in are mostly focused on the level 5 module that I'm the module leader on, which is called Applied Theatre. And that involves the students learning about how they can apply theatre techniques to affect social change in some kind of a way. And that obviously involves them having to work outside of Sheffield Hallam University and within various community groups, schools, and even Sheffield Hallam staff themselves. So the Applied Theatre module is a core module that every level 5 student in the Performance for Stage and Screen BA has to do, and the principles of authentic learning are obviously at the centre of that module, and so every single student who takes part in that degree of Performance on Stage and Screen will therefore have had exposure to authentic learning activities at some point over the course of the degree. It's also worth mentioning probably that in level 6, in their final semester, every student has to take part in what would probably be described as an employability module. And there are 3 of these that we offer. And again, all of these have at least one foot in the world outside of Sheffield Hallam University. So there's a variety of ways that the students learn on the Applied Theatre module. It's a mixture of more traditional lectures and seminars, but every week there are practical sessions where the students are learning about how to apply the principles and also the ethics of what they're learning about in the lectures from the expertise from myself and my colleagues. And we also had an associate lecturer who runs an applied theatre company called Dead Earnest, Charlie Barnes, who was part of the learning team. And what I think was fascinating about applied theatre is that, having spoken to my colleagues about ways of approaching learning about the subject, we realised that we could think in quite a meta way. So one of the crucial parts of applied theatre comes from a very famous practitioner called Auguste Boal, and he invented a form of theatre called forum theatre, which is when actors play out certain scenarios and the audience can stop the action at any point, and various techniques you can use to get the audience to make suggestions for doing things differently, and even the audience members can take and replace the part of the protagonist in the piece in order to illustrate how you could do things differently. So we thought of a really good sort of formative assessment which could help the students not just learn about applied theatre, but also think about their own working practices and how they can work together. So my colleague Daniel Johnson came up with a really good idea. I'd like to take credit for myself, but I'm not going to. And he thought that we could come up with a forum theatre session where the students devised scenes about the challenges of working and creating content within a group. So looking at potential conflicts within group work. So all the students were playing level 5 students at Sheffield Hallam University who were working on a devised project. And they had to come up with a scenario where there were certain problems as part of that. And then the following week, Ashley Barnes came in, and Ashley Barnes set up Dead Earnest Theatre Company and is a real expert in forum theatre. And he ran a session where we looked at all the students' work and they forum theatre, this whole idea of the best way to work as part of an ensemble. And so the students not only were learning about the technique, but they're also thinking about how they can work together. It was a really effective session, and there were some very honest contributions from people, and there were lots of really interesting insights about how you can resolve conflict and how early issues and conflicts within ensemble work can begin to appear. That formative assessment had, I think, quite a strong impact on how the students learned, and I know it's very important for us to try to quantify impact and how these things happen. And I suppose, in quite a simple sense, what I would call non-justifiable absence from sessions really went down. And so, interestingly, the week after that session, we had 100% attendance, and really some members of the group who maybe hadn't been quite as engaged with the whole module, or perhaps were unsure of the exact level of commitment that they'd have to have working with each other, suddenly picked up their game. And what I think was very interesting was that there were some students on this module who, having looked at their marks in the previous year, achieved much higher grades than they had done in the first year, which was very satisfying. And having spoken to them, as module leader, they commented on how they really enjoyed working as part of a group towards creating a performance in a community context. I don't think they would have thought as directly and clearly about exactly the best ways of working with a group unless we'd done that formative assessment, which had the word sort of applied at the very centre of it. One of the things I said to the students throughout the module was, one of the great things about this module in particular is that they are going to be sharing their knowledge and applying their expertise in a context that they've never done before. And I remember spending quite a lot of time in a lecture saying, you know more about your discipline than most people in this country. You're into your second year of study now. I got them to tell me the amount of modules that they've done. And I said, yes, on one hand, you have your client who is running a community organization, or is a teacher, or is somebody who's part of Venture Matrix, or whoever we're going to be working with. And they have a knowledge of who their service users are and who are the people that you're going to be doing your workshop from. But on the other hand, there's you. And what you have is an incredible amount of lived experience, of lived knowledge of very wide variety of theatre forms. And hopefully what's going to happen with applied theatre is that these two people and different sorts of people and different areas of knowledge are going to meet in the middle. And I said, and obviously some of the students get a little bit nervous about working outside of the kind of safe space of university. But I said to them, well, you'll be really surprised at how you come out of your first meeting with that client thinking, I've actually taught the client something, or I've actually changed slightly their perspective on looking at something. And that did happen, obviously to various degrees, but that really did happen. And I think that having looked at the module feedback forms at the end of the module, also having spoken to the students and also received feedback from the clients themselves, there were lots of comments about how confident the students seemed with their knowledge in terms of what the clients were saying. But from the students themselves, a lot of them felt how they surprised themselves at how much they knew, and how applying their knowledge in a context outside of Sheffield Hallam was a really good way of seeing how far they'd come so far on their learning journey at Sheffield Hallam. And I personally think, as someone relatively new to Sheffield Hallam, that having a module halfway through an undergraduate degree that puts them out into the community in different contexts is really, really effective. And some people may feel that this might be a little too soon or might be a little overwhelming for the students, but I was really impressed at how the students rose to the challenge. In terms of my experience of working on a module for the first time that has authentic learning activities at the centre of it, I was really impressed at how well equipped and how perfectly set up for these sorts of modules Sheffield Hallam University is. And I particularly enjoyed the process of working with Venture Matrix. They managed to sort out all the complex administrative elements of working with outside partners. So I wasn't involved with the actual nitty-gritty of getting in touch with teachers and community leaders and people like that and setting up those relationships. I was working with a member of the team called Nicola Nelson, and she had clearly worked incredibly hard over her time here to set up pre-existing relationships with partners. So I could talk to her about the sorts of people and places and groups we could work with. And she then did the fantastic work to get these projects going. So I could worry about teaching the students applied theatre, safe in the knowledge that the risk assessments, that all the administrative contact details and all those sorts of things have been set up. It was also great to see Nicola not just Nicola, actually, several of our colleagues come to see the work that the students did, so that we can talk about how it went, and we can also plan in the future how to do things even more effectively. So I think if there's anyone watching this that again is feeling a little nervous or unsure about using authentic learning activities as part of their module, I would say just talk to Venture Matrix, and you'll be really pleasantly surprised at the amount of support that you will have. And I've had first-hand experience of the difference it makes to the students, not just in terms of their increasing knowledge on the subject, but possibly more importantly, their own self-esteem, and I think that their aspiration and confidence about what they can do with their knowledge whilst they're here at university, but also after they graduate.